Muted for everybody, Mark? Okay, so I think we'll begin. Welcome, everybody. My name is Trudy, and I'm the founding teacher at InsightLA, and I'm absolutely thrilled that Sandra is here with me. We're actually not in the same location. That's what is so amazing, but we're here together, and we're all here together from our separate habitats. We're peeking out of our little caves, and we're here together. And I'm really happy also. I want to acknowledge the InsightLA team, Mark Coburg, who could raise your hand. Mark is our executive director. Yes, yes, yes. Kemi, who's our moderator and our volunteer coordinator. Thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you everybody for joining us. So happy to have this conversation. And what I thought we would do is do a brief meditation together and then open up for talking about what it's like to be here now in the world faced with so much uncertainty. And how can we be with this situation, you know, in the most mindful, heartful, creative way possible. So find a comfortable sitting posture. However if you're a meditator, just however you're used to meditating. If you're brand new to meditation, just sit some way that your back is reasonably straight, not sort of militarily rigid or anything, but just reasonably straight. And we're going to just sit for about 10 minutes. So yeah, any position that feels comfortable for that amount of time. And then if you're comfortable closing your eyes, you can do that. If you want to just lower your gaze, which is what I like to do, that's fine. You can leave your eyes open, but with the Zoom tiles, it's a little distracting. So I recommend lowering your gaze so that it's a signal to the whole organism, to your whole being, that you're not looking out your eyes, seeing who's here, but actually looking within. We're just it's a figure ground shift. We're just looking within. So relaxing into your posture, taking a deep breath in and releasing. Just breathing in the aliveness of this moment. And as you breathe out, feeling how it just calms us down. To notice that out breath and stay with it all the way to where it vanishes, dissolves into space. And so you can rest your attention with the movement of the breath in the body. Just feeling that ebb and flow in its own natural rhythm of your breathing, just as it is. And also bringing attention to the felt sense of your body, just sitting here quietly. Feeling the sensations in the body of the breath, moving in and out. The expansion of the rib cage and the lungs as you breathe in. And the gentle contraction of the belly and the chest as the out breath releases. And we bring attention to the simple sensation of the breath, to the sounds of life around us, to these sensory experiences that we only experience in this particular moment. We stay connected to now, to being right here, right now. And when our attention wanders away to the past or the future, we stay connected to the present moment through these simple experiences of breath, of body, of sound. And no matter how much busyness or agitation there may be in the mind, can always gently orient to this simple fact of sitting still. We can gently tune in to the stillness of the body, sitting quietly here. And we can bring awareness to the stream of thoughts and feelings, this stream of consciousness. Just observing, knowing, oh, remembering, thinking, planning, dreaming. Just noticing, knowing how it is for you in this particular moment of your whole life. And when I ring the bell to signal the end of our sitting meditation, I want to invite you to listen all the way to the end of that sound. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes. And when I'm teaching meditation to children, I always ask them, like, where did the sound go? Where did it go? And that is an invitation into the mystery of our being. Where does it come from? Well, we can describe it, but where does it go? And the kids have wonderful answers, all the way from not knowing to goes into God's ear. They have all kinds of ideas, but we're going to talk tonight about the unknown, about what happens when we don't know our reality. And we know this moment, which actually is all of reality, it's all we ever have. But we're so used to counting on a future and planning for a future. And I was saying to Sandra earlier, even on a day when I didn't have a ton of work to do, there's a momentum of busyness that I know. I know that better than I know not being busy. So, Sandra, let's talk about this together, and then we'll invite people to join us.
Yes. You know, the unknown, I've been, when we had a chat about this briefly the other day, Trudy, it was just, you know, as an actor, I feel like it's like my job in some ways to work with the unknown so often, and to actually learn to trust it a little bit. You know, I'm just thinking about the unknown in terms of my life and my profession, and also the practice of being an artist. And I'm sure that, you know, of our 125 people, yay, there's probably a bunch of artists, you know, in our group right now. And this is also something I would pose to fellow artists of, like, how do you deal with the unknown creatively? Like, I mean, like, even from the insecurity that it is to be an actor,
Yeah.
and the kind of fortitude that you need to have to not know where your next job is coming from. You know, at least this point, many people are really, really understanding that. And and kind of building up faith, not only in yourself, but just in, you know, the flow of things, you know, until you have to really meet reality with, like, I'm going to do that commercial, or I need to pick up a job somewhere else. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, it's so interesting. It's sort of ironic to me that, you know, so many of us are finding comfort at home in television and
Yeah.
looking at series that you've done and what other people have done. And, you know, we're benefiting so much right now from these moments of comfort through the art that you do and share so beautifully. And the idea that so many people working in the industry, you know, from the people in the hospitality segment to all the crews that support the whole entertainment industry, are out of work right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's, here we are needing it all more than ever. And anyway, I was just, as you were talking, I was just reflect about the insecurity of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I feel like people who are in our industry have a little more practice with it.
I think so.
You know, I do. I feel like we have a little more metal around it. Having said that, it's also very difficult because we usually cobble jobs together from this month to this month to this month to this month. But going around that for a second, regarding dealing with the unknown, I think creatively has been a real practice for this time for me as well. Because in some ways it can feel like the unknown can feel like a blank time. I always feel, for any of the actors out there, like, I always feel like there is this time when you're working on a play, probably this, for at least for me, after the second week of rehearsal. Like, usually you start a play everyone's around the table, everything's great, everyone's first instinct is fantastic, it starts kind of flowing. And I always feel like there is an abrupt halt where suddenly you have no idea what your character is doing, you don't know what is going on in the play. And I remember being in theater school where you would do play after play after play, and I would constantly hit this point and I would become extremely panicked and also filled with self-doubt. And then I don't remember what it was, the teacher, I don't remember really what it was, but starting to trust that this is actually a part of the entire process. This is actually the entire process of creatively. And now what I always also know and trust, when you start going into this kind of unknown space, let's say in the example of a play during rehearsal, because you always hit it. I just feel like you always hit it. Then you start trusting it. You can start trusting it a little bit more, that you're not spending your energy actually panicked or trying to control it, but actually sitting in it a little bit, like enveloping yourself in it in a little bit, because if you're still exploring, let's say the character, let's say you're still exploring the play, but you're not too tight about it, a lot of creative stuff comes out of the unknown.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot. I think a lot. And I felt like, even, I know I've talked to you about this before. It's like last year, I really tried to embrace chaos a lot more in my life. Like I started the year hosting the Golden Globes, which was so scary. It was so scary. I had no idea what I was doing. Thank you. I was no idea what I was doing, but I knew that I wanted to start that year embracing chaos, because I knew that I was really struggling with it. But also I feel like there's this wonderful, God, I don't know what it was, because I listened to so many podcasts and TED Talks and stuff like that, some quote somewhere, where to actually create something new in the creative process, you actually need chaos and a lot of the unknown to create something new. And so I try to really welcome it into my creative life and embrace it, because it's just like the longer you kind of hang out with it, I just feel like it's like you start learning its moves, or you start learning your own moves around it, within it. So like, I'm sure for a lot of people, the emotional ride this past month has probably been a roller coaster. I know it has been for me.
Yeah.
And not only with meditation, but I also feel as an actor, like you need to be able to be with your emotions. And just to kind of be with it. And so I'm really grateful for both my practice and my and being an actor, because I was just like, oh my gosh, I have all these skills that I studied in theater school are now like useful now.
Yes. They're actually helping you navigate this time. Yeah. Because as I'm listening to, and for me, it's fascinating because you're in a whole different field. And as I'm listening to you, I'm drawing the parallels to meditation practice, of course, to spiritual life and to growing in mindfulness and compassion, the things that we teach. And it's so easy to say these things and to have the concept of being aware and being mindful or being kind and loving and compassionate. But the actual lived experience, it does require this willingness to, as you said, enter the chaos, the messiness of really not knowing in our vulnerability what is going to happen. And just from, now that is amplified and heightened so much. And we are surrounded with the knowledge that over 16 million people have applied for unemployment suddenly. That people aren't having an easy time getting food on the table. It's not easy anymore. That, not to mention that we're hearing about how the more vulnerable populations and the people of color, and that some people are unequally and more adversely affected by this. And we know that our experiences with quarantine are very different depending on our level of privilege, really. Whether we have boundless access to the internet, whether we have a spacious home. I'm up at Jack's right now in the Bay Area. Sandra's in LA, and I'm up here because my place in LA is I mean, I love it. It's my place, but it's very tiny, and we couldn't both teach Zoom from simultaneously.
There's not enough rooms.
There's not enough rooms. One of us had to be in the laundry closet or something like that. So we're all having these unequal experiences, but all of us are dealing with the shock. It's kind of like, it reminds me of, those Roadrunner cartoons where he's just running, and then suddenly he's off the cliff and in the air and there's nothing underneath. And I feel like that's sort of what happened to us. Yeah. We're running along in our busy lives. And then suddenly we're blown away. Everything has stopped. We're living in the twilight zone, a surreal zone, for those of you who are too young to know that program, science fiction program. But from a meditation perspective, all of this is good news. My first teacher, who, as you know, Sandra, was a Korean Zen master named Reverend Sung San. And he used to say to us, a good situation is a bad, he's had these sound bites of teachings, because his English wasn't all that elaborate. And he would say, a good situation is a bad situation. A bad situation is a good situation. Now, what does that paradoxical Zen talk mean? It means that a good situation when everything's going well and we're super comfortable, we're not generally looking deeply into our own hearts and questioning our life's purpose, and we're just enjoying it, usually, if it's a good time. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's saying, no, it's a bad situation for deepening in wisdom and compassion, for learning how to live when it's not so great. Whereas a bad situation is a really good situation for that, whether it's that 2 weeks into rehearsal when suddenly, you're like the Roadrunner, you're up in the air and wait a minute, where was I going? And whoo! Whether it's that, or whether it's in meditation when we've learned how to follow certain guidance, we've learned how to practice certain methods, but suddenly then we encounter all the stuff of our being that has usually been outside of awareness, and it's here. And it's usually a big surprise, actually, to see all of that. And it can feel very chaotic. And I think that's more people aren't always flocking to their meditation seat to be with themselves. It can be really challenging that way. And the skills that we learn in doing that definitely generalize into the life. Just what you're saying.
I agree. And you want to know what, actually, Trudy, because we forgot to do this at the top, is to invite questions. If people want to write.
You guys, you're here. We want to hear you.
So if you want to write any questions in the chat, because Kemi we'll take them just because I know that we're going to have a bunch of questions all peppered throughout our talk. So I just want people to, kind of queue them up.
And we want to intersperse the questions that we're actually in a conversation with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Us have a conversation.
Yes, because we do this all the time. But, I actually, going into, like, let's say with again, as an actor, equating being on the cushion, or let's say even this time, COVID time, and then actually as an actor being with a character, there is something similar as well. You have to go into certain things, let's say for the character, that you might not want to go into.
Exactly.
But if you want to, do your job, be truthful, there are places that you have to investigate. So you have to spend time there. I think now during this COVID time, many people are super busy, even busier and more exhausted. And definitely everyone is more stressed. And some of us, myself included, because all my projects all went down. We have this time for introspection, and you do, it's like now everyone is really noticing how much time they're spending on their phones. Like, it's crazy. We need it. We need to have this connection. But I feel like, in my conversations I'm having many Zoom conversations with friends, we're kind of like noticing it's like, oh, I really am not dealing with how anxious I'm feeling because I'm just holding my phone all the time. So I'm just going to put that down, and you have to be with the feeling for a little bit, because ultimately it's hard. It feels hard at first. But there's actual, I don't know, it's like it builds relief. It's not necessarily relieving or feels good in the moment, let's say, when you're kind of like wrestling with your feelings or wrestling with your thoughts, but I feel like it builds. Like I feel like when you learn to actually trust the creative process, it takes time for a relationship with the creative process to develop, and then your skill to develop around it.
It's exactly the same thing with our sitting practice and our mindful walking and our learning to be aware and present in our daily life. And yeah, thank you. It's such a similar, we've had conversations about this, of course, before, but I'm learning new things tonight, and I want to invite other people. If you're curious, Kemi, I'm seeing there are some questions. Do you want to begin?
Sure.
Unmute people?
Yeah, so Sarah Gadsden is asking, I relate so strongly with your character, Christina Yang. Has anything about her character or neuroses impacted your approach to mindfulness?
Actually, Kimmy, I need you. Can you actually unmute her? Can I see her? Is she here?
Yeah. Let's see.
Because I would love to actually have a conversation with her if that's possible.
Yes.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, Sarah.
I'm like not camera ready, but yes.
Oh, sorry.
Christina Yang just gives me so much life, and Shonda Rhimes' character and your portrayal of her. So I'm curious how, if anything, that character has impacted your approach to mindfulness, or anything else you'd like to share.
Oh my God, I could go on and on and on about it. I'd say that honestly, I came to mindfulness about the same time, right at the beginning of Grey's. And I will say it was because Grey's changed my life so intensely, and there was a huge amount of stress. There was a huge amount of work and a huge amount of stress, and I felt destabilized, honestly, a lot of the time. And I had met Trudy actually through a friend of mine, a Canadian friend of mine, a while back. And I knew she had a center here in LA, so I started practicing with her. And Trudy will attest to this. I was struggling so intensely. I would seriously sit. I know if anyone here is from InsightLA, you'll remember this. I used to come into the center. I would sit with people, and I would sit, no joke, I would sit like this. And I would meditate like this. And the reason why is that I could barely handle being seen. There was something, it was so intense. But basically, because I kept on coming and sitting on that mat, eventually I was able, it was like, I felt like I was able to build enough interior strength because my life was changing so intensely. I was able to build up enough interior strength that I eventually took this off. And then I became a board member, and InsightLA is a big part of my life, because I just feel like mindfulness, one, I can go on and on about how mindfulness is like it's basically almost the exact same thing as art, I think, in the act of, in getting yourself ready for the act of creation. I have felt that it has influenced my creative life entirely. You know, just from the very bare minimum of like making you feel less stressed in a high stress, high work, exhausted situation, to then when you are able to, let's say, settle the mind a little bit, it opens up room for the unknown creativity to come out, I think. And like example, like the relationship that I have with Shonda, I'm sorry to go on, I'm just gonna go on just a little bit longer, about the creative process. Like sometimes Shonda and I really learned to, even when we were at loggerheads with stuff, we would learn that from that, a third thing would come out, and neither of us would plan it, couldn't either plan it. It's basically when both of our artistic desires came head to head, the energy of it would pop up, right? Why I'm bringing mindfulness into it is that I think both of us, but I know for me, I was able to hang on to still be connected to her and not go off in your ego. And then this other creative thing kind of shoots out. And I really feel like I started practicing and creating characters that way. And I know absolutely the majority, almost all of Gray's, you know, at least 8 of the 10 years were deeply influenced by mindfulness. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Do we have another one, Akemi? Another person, another
Lots and lots and lots of questions.
Good.
Awesome.
Esther Kim is asking, how do you sit in the discomfort of the chaos? I know it's helpful with work and art, but what are some ways you process? And I will unmute you, Esther.
Hi.
Hey, Esther.
Hello. Yeah, I was just kind of wondering about, like, this time is very difficult for a lot of people. And so I was just kind of thinking about, like, the different coping mechanisms that we all have. Like, I know that I'm an artist and that I channel my work, like the stress and pain in my life and my work, and like through acting, through creation, through these processes that I have created. But sometimes, like, especially like right now, it's kind of tricky to act. It's tricky to create when the world is kind of not ending, but it feels like it's ending. And so my question to you is, like, what are some things that you do to help with that anxiety or cope with or process some of the pain that's happening right now?
Trudy, do you want to start with that? And I can add to it at the end, you know, because I do think that, you know, you're the master.
You're the master in your sphere too. And, you know, I think it's such a great chance for people to hear from you. I'll just say briefly, Esther, that question is a huge question. It's the biggest question that we all have, really. How do we sit with and how do we cope with our suffering as human beings? And then, as I was saying earlier, it's so amplified right now. You know, even if you're in the happiest relationship, you're getting on each other's nerves by now, I guarantee you. And if you're home alone, that has its own challenges. So it's from the meditation perspective, when I come back to my first teacher, Sansanim, the Korean Zen master, and what he said, he was really teaching us how to actually just sit down, literally, physical embodiment of sitting in the midst of whatever is happening. And we did it with each other. It is a communal practice because, frankly, it's kind of grim and depressing to do it all by yourself all the time. And as a kind of bow or gesture of respect to the challenge of being with our own minds and hearts, and not putting all the greed and hate and delusion, you know, onto other people, but really owning that stuff in us too. The challenge of doing that, that's partly why I think it's done so often communally, and why even now people would rather gather, even though they have to sit in front of their screen, we'd rather be together and practice together being with the difficult stuff than just all on our own. So having some community to practice with and having some teachings that teach you literally how to sit down and take your seat of dignity, poise, and balance right in the midst, no matter what is happening, the most intense craving, the most intense rage, the most intense lust or grief, whatever it may be, fear. And it's not easy to do, but it's very doable. So now, Sandra, from your perspective, I realized I forgot to get my power cord. I'm going to do that. I'll be right back.
Okay, sure. Hey, Esther, I just really so appreciate your question, because that is the ultimate question I think that almost everyone has. The other night, I feel like the second week for me, like it always changes like week for week, but I feel like the second week for me was like the most emotional. And at one point I was kind of like trying to get to bed and then just overcome by like these waves of feeling, and for me, ultimately, I felt like I could feel everybody. I just felt overwhelmed by suffering, and then, because I'm also practiced enough to go, is this about to turn into a panic attack? You know what I mean? Like, is this about to turn into a panic attack? And I know enough around that, having suffered them as well, to then kind of like just lie in bed. It's all coming out. Let it come out. Just lie in bed. Like, it's almost like having to ground yourself on nice, soft things for a second, as as an actor, being in our bodies is like the very first thing. And when you kind of get knocked about by these things, especially, it's our job to feel things big, you know what I mean? And that's great. And it's also really hard. I mean, I feel things very intensely. I can see that you feel things very intensely, you know what I mean? And it's really to like get like a pillow of kindness, a pillow of kindness, especially when it's coming on. It's like, I gotta sit in my kindness pillow because the suffering is coming. And then, give yourself a little bit there. And even when, then it's like, the depression can come too. Then even when you're in it, it's just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna maybe not be sitting in my kindness pillow because it's kind of a little bit too much. And then just kind of reach for just like another piece of like kindness energy. You know what I mean? Because I can a lot of times really feel the weight of feelings, but also as an actor, just like definitely get back into your body, always get in your body, because that will keep you present as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you, Esther.
That's the exact same teaching as in meditation. We get in the body, we feel the breath in the body. And the reason for that too is that it cuts through the narrative. It cuts through the story that the mind is telling, which when we're upset is never a pretty story. It's always a scary story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll breathe easier now.
Okay, so the next.
Let's have another question, please.
Yeah, the next question is from iPhone. Sandra, I am American. How are you processing all the xenophobia and acts of hate against the Asian community? And iPhone, you are now unmuted.
Hey, iPhone.
Hi, Sandra. Can you see me?
Oh,
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Hi, Kimmy. Hi, Trudy.
Hi.
Oh, do you want me to just answer? Is there anything you want to add to it?
Well, I've experienced a couple of things that unexpected and kind of rocked me,
Yeah.
And I think my concern is whom I'm going to be on the other side of this.
I feel like how many Asian peoples are on here? I think there's a good amount of us, woohoo! And I mean, I think that we have got to just like, this is the starting of conversations that I feel like I'm having with friends, and that I'm now seeing in rooms a little bit more, where it's just like, it's happening. And I barely know how to process it. You know what I mean? Because as we know, our sisters and brothers are out there, and like crazy stuff. It feels so crazy. Your question of how are we going to be, who are we going to be on the other side of that, is, I think, just another, I think it's a great question for us to hold as Asian Americans, because I do think in some ways that's a big, it's a fundamental question we all need to ask ourselves. Has there been a time, have we not known ourselves, or not known who we are as a community for too long? And now almost all of us are affected and rocked by the xenophobia that is going on. And do we have to redefine or even define who we are for ourselves? And I think those are all very important and valid questions. You know, I was listening to, who was it? Shit. You want to know what? I think it was on The Daily. The New York Times has a podcast, has The Daily, and I think there was a writer who was on it, and she was talking about her xenophobic experiences and how different it is generationally. You know what I mean? Like, my parents went through so much stuff. Like, so the idea of, and what people don't seem to, a lot of people understand, like Asian people understand, but other people might understand, is Asian people don't have the same type of threat to our bodies that our African American, Latina, and Latinx sisters and brothers have. You know what I mean? And other people of color who have. We have this other threat that in some ways is very interior. And there's a lot about, I think, our own natural Asianness that I think we battle and we question. And also, I don't think that we are proud enough of. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot that is in North American Western white culture that it actually isn't how a lot of us were raised. And it's not a natural go-to thing. So a lot of times it's not a natural go-to thing to strike back. You know what I mean? And or the idea to let things slide or whatever, it can be interpreted a bunch of different ways. But going back to your central question, I mean, that's a question I'll ask you. Who do you feel like you want to be past COVID, and then seeing your fellow Americans demonize you because of your face?
That's a good question. And I think being Asian, I don't know what it's like for you, but there's an extra added cultural layer of shame that Asians kind of carry. So I think for me, that button that's being pushed is, you're the cause of this. You are to blame. And I think intellectually, I know that that's not the case, but there's whatever wound that I might carry, there's that sense of accountability that someone's trying to ascribe to our people, that I don't know. I don't think we're violent by nature, you know? I think our response is to succeed and to overcome as a culture. I think it's built into us, this sense of not acting out because we want to behave with honor. At least that's how I feel. I'm just working on being the best version of me and having some compassion for people whom I think are behaving in a fearful way. I think they're afraid and they want someone to blame. And we're the targets.
Trudy, do you have any words to say, let's say, any guidance to give, like when you are, if you find yourself in that experience, in the moment of the experience, you go to the grocery store, you're at a gas station, let's say, and someone approaches you or just yells something at you, what do you do?
It's so interesting because as a white cisgender, I'm heterosexual, Jewish woman, I don't have that experience today, but when I was younger, I did. I lived in France for many years, and as a young woman being Jewish in that culture, I mean, I just have memories like this, being crazy about this boy. I was 15 and he was 18, so of course he was like God to me. And and he asked, we were going out and I was so excited, and we were in a cafe and it was just a lovely moment sitting there together at this cafe, and he was just being pensive and he kind of put his head on his hand and he said, there's really only one thing, and he used a French word that means not only I can't stand it, but it revolts me. There's really only one thing that revolts me in this life. And I'm just like, what is it? And he said, Jews. Now, in a moment like that, when the person you want most in the world to love you, in that moment, being 15 years old, it was more important to me than my parents, of course. But I remember just this feeling of total paralysis and terror that came over me. And that I've had a few experiences like that of anti-Semitism as a young woman, that I felt so disabled and paralyzed, frankly, by the macroaggression or the microaggression, whatever it was. And I didn't have a meditation or a mindfulness practice at that time. And where I feel like, the practice can help us is because we can take a breath and we can step back and we can know what's going on inside us. And just that little space between the skull and the brain, that little space before we react allows us to maybe have a response that is a little bit wiser, and maybe even to get angry, which I certainly did not know how to do. I just went into total shame when I was younger, kind of like what you were talking about. And so I feel like, this practice that allows us to know ourselves, to know just what you were saying. I forget your name. iPhone is what.
Faye. I don't know why it does that. It's Faye.
Faye, just what you were saying so compassionately about it's people who are scared. Obviously they're in the grip of their fear and projection onto the other as being the danger, right? And so that's you naturally have that compassion. And the thing that I think especially as women, the thing that's tricky, and I don't have a solution, I'm just sharing it's tricky, is that as women also, not to even mention Asian women, we are socialized not to say or do angry things because it's unattractive, it's unpleasant, it's bitchy, it's, fill in the blanks. And so being able to even harness the energy of righteous anger to be able to say something to defend or protect or whatever the situation calls for, it's so important. And because the shame that I still carry somewhere inside me over not having said a word to that boy in the moment. I didn't go out with him anymore, obviously, but I never told him, I'm Jewish. You hate me, I'm Jewish. And to be able to say just that would have been so important and healing. Anyway, I don't have a solution, and
But Faye, I want to say something. It's like the point that you're talking about shame. I think it's very interesting to look around, you know what I mean? And however it is, how we move past this COVID time, I hope for Asian Americans that we are not carrying more shame, that we are actually able to release ourselves from it, either through anger, either through clarity, either through, I don't need your approval. I think that there is also something deeply in our culture that has perhaps foregone certain things to have approval. And I know for me, I'm not interested in that anymore. It's like, okay, fear person. And I'm sorry to hear that that's happened to you, because very hard.
But what a liberation, Sandra. What a freedom to not be bound by the need to be approved of and loved by everybody in that way. And I can imagine professionally too, what a huge freedom. You know, yeah.
Thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is from Leo. Hi, I'm an Asian American actor on hiatus from the series. What you were saying about knowing uncertainty as an actor and learning to navigate it really resonated with me. I was wondering if maybe you'd be able to speak to being hypervisible as an actor, but specifically as an Asian actor, if there's a connection there for you. And Leo, you are unmuted now.
Hi. Hello.
Hey, Leo, can you just clarify a little bit regarding the hypervisibility, and then what are you relating that to?
Great. So I'm definitely not in a similar position. You've had Gary's Academy and Killing Eve, and so you're probably more recognizable. My show is a very niche audience. I've been actually living in the sweatshirt that has our show's title for the last 2 weeks. And so this idea of hypervisibility in terms of being readily recognized, recognized by, audiences and viewers. And I think that's something that, how does that relate to now your Asian identity, kind of similar to what they was talking about in terms of, when you go out, when I go out, one of the most notable things about me, unless somebody actually knows who I am, isn't going to be that, I'm a trans actor. They're going to be seeing an Asian person. They're not going to see actor. They're not going to see any other identity. For me, that's how I feel. And so how do these kind of identities correlate for you? And if they do at all, I don't want to make assumptions. But, you spoke about when you were first going to InsightLA and you kind of have a scarf over because you're anxious about that. And so in terms of visibility and being hyper visible given a platform, and how does race play a part for that?
Yeah, I think I understand your question. I'm really happy to talk about it. As your visibility grows, and I think as your responsibility grows as an actor and as an artist, for me, I know that I have thought and I think and I work on issues of identity all the time, honestly, through all the characters. I feel like I work through my issues of identity through all of my characters. And it's also the grace, again, about being an actor, an artist. You're always having to ask the question, who am I? And what is my intention? What's my intention? That's a very, very, very basic acting thingy, right? But you can then, again, your visibility grows, I think you're constantly needing to continue asking those questions. Because when you do, you will grow in your confidence of who you are, right? So to really not give a shit about what anyone says, right? You have to work through that. And only you will know what that is when you've come to that place of I'm solid, So I think also what happens is that when you do become more visible, you if you choose to, but a lot of our job is, you are come in contact with press, and you have to learn how to, I mean, you don't have to, because it's not like all actors speak well, for God's sakes. But I do feel, as an Asian American actor, I wanted my concepts and my thoughts to be as clear as possible, to be as grounded as possible. Because if they do, they will make sense to the person I'm talking to, and they will be able to translate it through, whatever press that they work for, and that message will get across. And the only way for your message to get across is to know what you're saying, right? So you're constantly having to evaluate, what do I think about XYZ? Like, I'm sure you get this all the time. I can't stand it. What's it like being an Asian American actor? You know what I mean? It's like, how many times can I answer that question in 30 years? But I will say, because I am asked that, you have to think about it. You have to think about it. It's like, well, how is it now? How is it now? How is it now? I've gotten to the points then with like journalists where it's like, I don't like your question. It's like, the problem is actually your question. So I'm not going to answer your question, because your question, if I answer your question, I'm agreeing to the set of rules that this question is demanding. And you can only address that, again, if you know yourself. So maybe that's that. Hope that helps you.
No, that was amazing. I appreciate that. And I think that makes so much sense. And I guess I just think about it, and those two identities now so much more, given, what the world we're living in, and socially, and given the current state of racial perceptions, and affects myself as an actor as well. So thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. And
yeah. Thank you.
Next question is from Chelsea. Sandra and Trudy, how do you balance being with yourself and still having the motivation to create, get work done, etc.? I found at the start of this a guilt for not completing tasks I wanted to set for myself. Chelsea, you are unmuted.
Hi.
Hi, Chelsea.
This was kind of a hard one. I mean, COVID was hard for everybody, but especially I've always been a workaholic, and work, I travel all the time. I'm maybe home 2 months out of the year. So this is the longest time I've been home in a while without work. And so I've really appreciated getting to know myself more and sitting in that time, like we were talking about earlier. But I also want to creatively explore and like get work done in other ways other than my normal job. So how do you balance both of those, I guess?
I'd like to say, I think if we could reframe healing and self-compassion and kindness and that pillow that Sandra was talking about, if we could understand that as a form of productivity, it would really help. Because right now, listen, I was the same way. I was like, wow, I'm going to finally learn Spanish, and I'm going to learn new recipes. Right. And I'm going to, oh my gosh, the things I was going to do. No, they're not going to happen probably. But really big, and not because I'm too blown away and scared to do them, but because I'm busy already, and because I want to check in with loved ones. And I mean, I told Sandra my phone expired in a fit of planned obsolescence last night. My 3-year-old phone died. So I'm actually without a phone right now. But it's a really interesting opportunity to see, what do I do with this time that's given to me? And it's not any more time really in a day at home than it is in a day of being out and about. It just feels like that. And just to piggyback on the previous question a little bit, we don't have to produce something to prove our value. And I was told when I moved to LA, I spent most of my adult life in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the Boston area. And somebody said to me when I moved here, well, here you are what you create. And the minute you stop creating something, you're forgotten and you're nobody. And I thought, that's terrifying. That's really scary.
Yeah, I live in LA. I understand. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
It's true.
Yeah. So we really need to, I think this is another way that we really need each other. We really need to support each other in sort of reframing what is productive. To me, getting to know yourself is the most productive thing you could do, because the more deeply you know and accept who you are, the more deeply, it's just axiomatic, you're going to know and accept everybody else. And suddenly you feel close to and more friendly with and less threatened by and less separate from. They're not the other anymore. We're in a shared humanity together. And then that relaxation of the drivenness to get work done and stuff, that relaxation allows us to not know what might be next. And out of that, as Sandra was saying earlier, out of that willingness to not know what's next, we can be creative, but real creativity. Because if we know everything all the time, even as much as we want to know when this is going to end and people are going to stop dying, but if we know everything all the time, we only get the life that we know. And none of us come to our meditation or our art or our work, whatever that may be, just only ever wanting to know what we already know. As humans, we love to learn, and we're built to learn and grow, and we love that. Yeah.
Oh, Trudy, that is so great. Of like, as something that is really interesting and juicy to me is like, we want to live the life that we don't know. I know, at least for me, I'm interested. It's like, if you want to create, why would you create? Or else I'm not interested in creating something that I've already created, you know? And Chelsea, I don't know about you. My creativity drive, which has always revved on high. Like,
yeah, right.
And so it started freaking me out actually a little bit, because it was like, oh my God, I've got a bunch of projects I should be working on. Oh, this is such a great time to work on this script and blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I've had to like really shift my whole thinking around it. And it has helped, you know, I'm sure with all your fellow artist friends like mine as well, is like, are you doing anything? No. Are you? No. You know, I started doing this tiny little thing that I put up on Instagram, which is like actually my acting teacher. We did this on acting retreat. Every day you would have to just try and make a little mandala, like make art out of like anything, like make it out of like anything. You know what I mean? Let's just do this. This is for me today. This is me today. And something and that's as much as I'm doing. It's something as small as that, to just keep the contact. Do you know what I mean? There's a certain type of contact that we have with our creativity. And I think we can get on shaky ground when it doesn't look the same, which is kind of like a drive or a certain type of energy that is familiar to us. But if we think that the whole creative life force is going on all the time, like that, it's telling us something, you know what I mean? So, and most of it is to be like, where are you, artist, right now? I'm really tired. I'm really sad. I'm really this. And again, that all of these things, even with your identity or knowing yourself, your creativity, you just have to honor exactly where it is right now. And if your gas tank is like at zero, then it's just at zero. You know, there's other things that you can start building around it, which is just like cooking. You know, I can't think of anything else than cooking. I gotta tell you, I have been cooking a lot. That has actually made sense to me. And it's interesting. Yeah. Sorry.
No,
Trudy,
go ahead. Go ahead.
No.
It's just a stupid joke I'm going to say. Somebody told me, like, now we have to wear our masks indoors as well as outdoors. And of course, I'm very gullible. And I'm just like, oh, why? And she said, so we'll stop eating. Because it's true. Cooking and eating has become very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Our next question from Brian Sterling. Sandra and Trudy, do either of you have any strategies for helping to encourage a loved one to meditate more? I've been practicing semi-regularly, and I deeply feel the benefits of it. I strongly feel that we will have a strong relationship if we both meditated regularly. Hoping to lead by example, but was wondering if you had any tips for encouragement. He seems very reluctant. We've been together for 3 years. Brian, you are unmuted.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hey, Brian.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
I just want to say I really appreciate you both setting this up. This is amazing. So
thanks, man. Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you.
for sure.
So that question being said, my fiance is actually here next to me. So he heard the question, but I'm really curious because I know that you guys, you preach meditation.
Yeah.
And so like what strategies you have to encourage, more people to meditate?
Do you want, I'll start. Do you want me to start? And then you can come up with the big finish win.
Either way.
I got to tell you, I just lob it out there very gently as an offering because I just feel like people will come to it on their own time. And if their interest leads them there, like if people know that I meditate, and most of my friends do, and if they want to know, I will tell them, and if we're in conversations, I was in a conversation with my good friends the other day, and, we were just talking about certain concepts, or even just, I don't know what the hell it was, but I brought some concepts of meditation into it. And because I meditate, I felt like I was able to at least express why it's important to them. Whether they're going to come and do this or not is really up to them. I kind of am pretty hands off. How about you, meditation teacher lady?
Oh, I've had so many fantasies about meditating with my parents when I was younger, meditating with my daughter, meditating with my sister and brother. None of it ever happened. And I thought, well, I guess I'm just not embodying the beauty and nobility of these teachings enough for them to be drawn to it. And that's probably true. I wasn't. But at the same time, one of the things that I learn is it's like that saying in 12 Step, the slogan, attraction, not promotion, that one of the things that drew me to meditation was seeing people who were meditators and seeing that they seemed calmer and they seemed wiser and they seemed to have just a better grip on their lives than I did at that time. I was in my 20s, really, I don't know, maybe around 25 or 6 when I started meditating. And I thought I was kind of too old to begin. That's just how you are when you're in your 20s. But I really feel like to express our own love for it and to do it is better than to encourage somebody else to do it. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is very practical. It just usually doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Most people, if you're like me, you don't like to be told what to do. Mm-hmm. And if your partner is meditating and you're not, you can still get some of the benefits of the practice just through being with them, because They are honoring and embracing their emotions more. They're becoming deeper, more conscious partner, and all of that rubs off on you too. So that's part of it. And the other part is that maybe you feel, it's easy to feel abandoned when someone is meditating and you're not. Like they've left you, they've gone away somewhere. They're in some corner of their mind or being that you don't have any access to. And that feeling of being left out or somehow abandoned, it's not, it doesn't actually, you'd think it would, but it doesn't encourage you to want to practice. It makes you feel sad or resentful of it. So this is not very uplifting, Brian, I know.
Oh my God, Brian, your fiance beside you is going, ah!
I mean, I can't see him, but
I will say this, Brian. You know, it's like a long game, man. Wait, where is he?
I just got a glimpse of him. There he is.
Well, thank you so much for the words. I know. I think it's extremely interesting and very important, but at the same time, I feel like I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I know it's beneficial. I know helps you to have a clear mind, and I'm very hyper all the time, but at the same time I feel like I have a hard time in sitting down and concentrate, or just not having those thoughts come across my mind. So I think I will get there eventually.
If you
but
want to,
I'm not there yet.
definitely will. If you want to, you definitely will. But I want to just say a couple things, which is that for people who are more physically active or have more difficulty sitting still, it's sometimes good to begin with a practice like maybe a martial art or doing some mindful walking, something that where you actually move your body. That's the first thing. And the other thing is, one of the most common misconceptions about meditation and mindfulness is that you have to stop your thinking, and that if you have all this thinking going on in your head, that means you're a bad meditator and it's just not for you. And that's not true. The whole thrust of the practice is really to begin to learn how to observe and watch and be aware of our thinking process without always getting sucked in and lost in it. And that's what takes practice, because you can actually, I mean, after a number of years, after you've practiced, and it doesn't have to take years. I mean, you don't have to spend 45 years like me or more, but you really don't. But when you practice a little while and you start to get the hang of it, you realize, and there are methods that help you get the hang of it, you realize, oh my gosh, I can just let it roll on. It doesn't have to, I don't have to stop it. I can be at peace, centered in my own being, while tons of thinking is appearing and disappearing and having its thoughts and having its feelings. And you see what I mean? You learn to not identify with the thoughts and make them be a story about what kind of meditator you are or aren't. They become like the weather. And you know, we do most people, especially living in Southern California, love sunny days. Being from New England, I actually like cloudy days, but whatever kind of weather we like, it's not going to be that weather all the time. And so we learn to take that kind of spacious approach to what's going on in our minds and hearts too, because I saw this great photograph of a yoga studio where I had taught in the past, and it's closed now, of course. And in huge letters on the storefront, it says, "This too shall pass." And mindfulness practice gives us familiarity with the changing nature of things. And we start to trust in that activity of impermanence, that it can actually be an ally for us. And when things are all cool and, you know, copacetic and we're great, we don't like to think that they'll ever change. But it's good news when we're not feeling so great or going through hard times like this.
No, and
so I just want to add that.
Actually what you say and some part of the conversation about being present at the moment, I have a difficult time with that too. I'm always planning ahead. I'm always looking forward to do things. And I think that's what makes me meditation hobby so interesting, for me, or like not having that. It's not that passion. It's not that invest my time on yet.
Well, one of the things that's also interesting for you to consider is when you're planning the next thing, when that activity is going on and you are knowing that that's what you're doing, that is mindfulness. You don't even have to stop planning. All you need to do is be aware, oh, okay, planning. Looks like my mind loves to plan, and just observing that. And that's that little space between the skull and the brain that I was talking about earlier. So I'm not trying to talk you into it. I just want you to know that I'm to support you not doing it. But if you decide to try someday, just know that it's not what you think it is.
We have tried a couple different types of meditation. The more recent one that we tried, I felt was a little bit more interesting, and I enjoyed. When it's over, it's something that I have a hard time going and doing, but after I do, I really have that good feeling, that relax and really mindful. That was good for me.
Do you feel like you deserve to feel that way more of the time?
Oh yeah, definitely. We all do.
Good. Okay, good. And you will.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was very profound. Thank you.
And thank you to Brian for being a healthcare worker. Thank you so much for what you're doing for our community, especially as someone who says you're classified as high risk for complications.
Wow.
Yeah.
Courage. Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you for your courage.
And this next question is from Samantha. Trudy and Sandra, I'm quite practiced in mindfulness and meditation, but I do suffer from depression and anxiety, and I have found this pandemic to be much different than anything I've experienced before in terms of extra panic and worrying. That being said, do you have any suggestions on how someone with mental illness can use their time wisely instead of wallowing in boredom and worry? And Samantha, you are unmuted.
Hi.
Hey, Samantha.
Oh my God, sorry, I'm kind of like having a little heart attack right now. Yeah, but in terms of my question, yeah, I've just found it been really hard to actually like stay, like when you have something like depression, you're already kind of like isolating yourself from others and trying to take canceling plans and whatnot, or doing whatever you can to be alone. But then when you're here, like when now we're in a point of time where we're forced to be alone and we're forced to be in a situation where we can't really be around people. So just wondering how that kind of balances out, or how anything we can do to start talking about people with different illnesses and how maybe we can all get through this.
Hey, Trudy, I'm going to just start with the very beginning, because I'm going to start with a story, something that you told me, and then you can take it away. When I did my first kind of 10-day retreat, it was up at Spirit Rock, and Trudy was teaching it. And there was something about sitting through the retreat, you know what I mean? You're sitting there. My depression like came over me so intensely, and I also could not really stop crying. Like, it was very, very hard, and I felt the heaviness, the dragginess of it. It's just like, and I was like, this is like only day 3 or day 4, or like, and is this how it is? Like, how it was really like dragging me. And I remember having this session with Trudy, and she actually said, go run. She actually said, you need to, when you're doing walking meditation, she goes, you actually need to look up. Like, don't look down, look up. And she actually told me to run. Like, we weren't really supposed to exercise there, right? And I had a jump rope. I did bring a jump rope. And she goes, you should jump rope and you should run. Because it will actually lift you to kind of a more base level. And even just the act, I think, of looking up really helped me a lot, because it was just, the retreat for me was so, it got really heavy, and it really got so, the emotions, I can't even tell you which ones they were just heavy. So that really helped for me, Trudy, when you told me to basically shake and wake up my body. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I have, I've always had, I don't know, ADD, ADHD, I've always myself had to struggle with that. And so I have a lot of sympathy for people who don't sit still, don't want to sit still, or have to go through, like Samantha was describing, like a lot of mental static before things calm down. And I always thought everybody was like that. And then the first time I took some medication for my condition, I meditated and I burst into tears because it was so much easier. And I thought, oh my gosh, like this is really how it is for people, I guess. It's easier for them, but that's not true. It's hard for all of us in different ways. It just is. As human beings, we all struggle and suffer in different ways. And that was one of the greatest things for me, Samantha, about encountering Buddhist psychology and Buddhist philosophy, because it was so clear. That's the first truth of life. Everybody suffers. Oh, you mean it's not my fault? It's not because of my relationship, or that I didn't get that job, or because I'm living in the wrong place, or because, you know, endless reasons. It's just, it's maybe due to our mortality and our knowing it. The only animals who deeply know it in that way. But I think that your question of how to use time wisely, I feel a little judgment in that question. Like if you just are being yourself and enjoying a moment and doing nothing, that's not using time wisely. It's harder to get out of our head and our worries and stuff when we're alone so much. Where do you live? I just wanted to ask you that.
I'm from Toronto, Canada.
You know, there are, I'm sure. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can find a group or something online. If necessary, come sit with us at InsightLA. You know, I'm teaching, what is today? Friday, Sunday morning between 11, that would be 2 your time, and 3:30. You know what I mean? Tune in and sit with us, because it's the best thing to have company. It really is. And I want to encourage you to just be so kind to yourself about how you're using your time. I spent 3 hours the other day texting stupid cartoons to different people, getting them and texting them. And I was like, oh my God, you just did that for 3 hours. Of course, you know, we can hyper focus when we have ADD, and and time just evaporates. And then I realized I needed to do that. I needed to do something silly. I needed to laugh. I needed to be just not serious for a while. And so whatever you're doing, you may be just needing to do that, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question is from Candace. What tools can you recommend Sandra and Trudy to help deal with agitated past trauma? As a New Yorker, I only recently realized that I was having panic attacks because I was being triggered by my 9/11 PTSD with vacant city blocks. Just looking for more coping methods outside of just trying to think myself out of the panic attack. Candace, you're unmuted.
Oh, hello. Hi.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
I was just curious about techniques. When Esther asked her question, you guys kind of tapped into it a little bit. But for myself, I have a thing where I feel like I need to know information to feel more secure in what's happening in the world. But I feel like I'm getting an information overload, and it's doing the opposite of what it usually does. Yeah. And recently with panic attacks, I would go back and forth between thinking I had the virus because family members have the virus, and then realizing, okay, maybe this is similar, maybe you felt this before. And the only technique I have currently is just trying to be logical in my brain. But sometimes that takes longer than I would prefer to get to like an equilibrium of just feeling calm and not tense for hours. So I was just wondering if you guys had any words of wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have, Candace, do you have any meditation or stretching or exercise that you do?
Actually, I was interesting that you mentioned earlier to Brian about martial arts because I have a fidgeting thing, and so that's been sort of my outlet. But lately, I've not really been doing that, and so I feel like I have more tension overall in my body that I'm not expressing.
Yeah, because that would be my first encouragement to you, is to have some way to release some of that tension from the body. And then what can happen through meditation is that instead of relying on that logical part of the brain to comfort yourself, you begin to, as Sandra was saying earlier, you get more comfortable just hanging out in the chaos of everything, and being able to be present with it in a calmer way. And then that, in some mysterious way, I don't really know how it works. Someday we'll probably understand these mechanisms, but that helps to strengthen one's intuition. And that intuition kicks in like, oh, wow, watching the news is not helping me. And I need to stop, or I need to titrate how much I do, or I need to read it instead of watching it, so it's not so re-traumatizing. And when you have trauma, like you mentioned from 9/11 and seeing the empty streets, I got shivers when you said that, because I could imagine it. And when you have that kind of trauma, what you want to do is just touch into it, recognize it, and then if you can, to change the channel, sing a song, do anything that would change the channel, because we don't want to immerse ourselves in a traumatic flashback of any kind. Do you know what I'm saying? It just triggers the nervous system so much, and it's not in your control anymore. It just has a life of its own, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
So, Samantha, I wanted to speak about, Candace. Candace, I wanted to speak about the body, and as you were saying, if you're someone who it's like, okay, wait, what's the first step? Like, can you tell me the steps that I need to take? Actually, I can't see Candace.
Oh,
there you go. There you go. I'm wondering if you can start, when you were talking about the martial arts stuff, also for depression, for me, like I have to move my body. Like I have to move my body. Either it's like stretching classes, or workout classes, or Tai Chi or Qigong classes. And all you got to do is kind of like search around, I think. I just really feel like there's a lot that's online right now. And it's weird kind of getting it set up and trying to find a corner to like do all this stuff. But I feel like that is like, for me, the basic grounding, it's like you could jump rope, for God's sakes, you know what I mean? As in one way that you can get back into your body, you know what I mean? To kind of just lower that panic kind of thing. And the second thing is, like, regarding meditation, there are a lot of tools. There's a lot of different types of meditation that you can kind of venture into. Like, one thing is like a body scan, right? For me, I find it hard to do a body scan on my own. So I always like listening to someone teaching a body scan meditation, which you can find online. You really, really can. And also InsightLA has lots of classes and lots of teachers and all that stuff. But even that, it's like someone will say, you start at the head, and then you're lying down or you're sitting down, and it helps you get into your body, and it just helps you. It's like literally logical person. You can be thinking of your head, and then behind your eyes, you can think of it, you can feel it right now, your jaw, your neck, and you can do the map of your body if something like that makes more sense to you. You know what I mean? Okay. And that can just slow it down just like a little bit, But I do feel like online there's lots of resources also, like at InsightLA, but there's a lot of other places that I think that you can have outreach and also community. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
if I think, also I don't know, maybe it was Samantha who said that, if someone is shy, if you're shy and new to meditation, actually starting out online is a great way. So you can kind of mute yourself, or you don't have to see people, but you're there actually with people. You know what I mean? And it's always a friendly kind of atmosphere. And if, we pass through this, you wanted to continue that, actually being in a room filled with people helps you sit. Oh my God, like it really does. And it grounds you. It's just like it's more like it's more powerful. That's it. So
Okay.
thanks
Thank
so
you.
much, Candace. Stay safe in New York.
Thank you.
We could do a loving kindness body scan, which is a very different kind of meditation from just being mindful and aware of what's happening in the present moment, which is what we were doing at the beginning. But there's a kind of body scan that I love, and I've been teaching it a lot these days because I think it enhances the immunity of our bodies. It strengthens our immunity, and it really, I learned it years ago in a long silent meditation retreat in Massachusetts from an Asian monk who had come, I can't remember if it was Burma or Thailand, but he taught us this meditation. And as he taught us, it seemed so simplistic. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm not in preschool, sir, and thinking, what are you doing? But I did it because peer pressure, you can't get up and move. I was sitting in the group and we were meditating, and I went through it. It was so helpful at the end. So I want to ask you to suspend your judgment, suspend your skepticism just for the next, we'll do an abbreviated version of this, maybe, 10 or 12 minutes, something like that. But you'll get the feeling of it, I think. And so again, just encouraging you to suspend your judgment, and all you need to do is repeat to yourself silently the phrases that I'm offering, or something close. It doesn't have to be exact. So once again, finding your comfortable sitting posture, relaxing back, any way that you're comfortable sitting, it doesn't matter. And then lowering your gaze or closing your eyes is just a signal to your being that you're bringing a different quality of attention to who you are right now. And just feel your body sitting here, this body that really contains, embraces, expresses, and sustains our life, our aliveness. Just tuning into the aliveness of this body for a moment. And so this practice of offering love to the body takes the form of wishes, blessings, and I'll begin, and I want to encourage you, as I said, to just follow silently, saying these words to yourself, and all you have to do is listen to what you're saying. May my head be happy. May my whole scalp and face relax. My ears and jaw. May my whole head relax and be at ease. And then moving attention from the head to the neck. May my neck be happy, my throat, the inside and outside of my neck. May my neck soften. and be happy. May my shoulders be happy. May they drop and relax a little bit. Shoulders carry so much tension. May my shoulders be at ease. And my arms. May my arms relax. The upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and hands. May my arms and hands relax and be happy. My thumbs and fingers and palms and back of the hand. May my hands be at ease. And then moving your attention from the arms and hands to the front of the body, feeling the chest and belly. May the whole region of my chest, heart and lungs relax and be happy. May my diaphragm, my belly, my abdomen, and all the internal organs of digestion and reproduction, may this whole region of my body be relaxed and at peace. And then moving your attention to the back, to the upper back, middle back, lower back. May my whole back, may my spine and shoulder blades, my whole back, lower back, release the tension that is so often held there. May my back relax and be at ease. And then bringing attention to the region of the hips. May my hips relax and be free of judgment. May my hips be strong and happy. May my bottom, the whole area of my genitals, relax and be peaceful and content. May my thighs be happy, free from judgment. May the femurs, the muscles, the skin, the whole thigh be strong and happy. And then bringing attention from the thighs to the knees. May my knees be safe and well. This complicated joint May my knees be happy. Then bring attention to the lower leg. May my calves and shins and ankles, may they be happy. May my feet be happy. The tops of my feet, my toes, the bottoms of my feet and the heels. May my feet that carry me everywhere I need to go be healthy and strong and happy. And then as you breathe in and out, experiment with just explore sweeping your attention through the body from head to toe. Maybe inhaling from toe to head and then exhaling from head to toe. Just feeling the aliveness of the body in this moment. This body breathing. May my whole body be relaxed and at ease. May my body be a safe space, a refuge. And may this body be healthy and strong. May I offer these friendly wishes and cherish this body. Letting go of all the thoughts about what we should or could or would, coulda, woulda, shoulda, done, do. And just resting in the fullness of our own being. And you can repeat these few phrases. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May I live with the ease of an open heart. May I be healthy and strong. And if that's not possible, may I accept my limitations with grace. May my heart be steady through the ups and downs of life. And may I appreciate my life, even as it is today. And last, but definitely not least, may I love myself completely, just the way I am. So this is a different kind of meditation. It's a little bit more like TM, where we focus on a phrase and repeat that phrase. And you can just try it out sometimes if you're feeling stressed and anxious, which we all are at different points. And just see what, if anybody wants to share what that felt like, I'd be kind of curious. Were you able to do it a bit, Candace? Are you muted? Kemi, can you unmute Candace?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It was very calming.
Okay.
I also I have heart palpitations sometimes, so it's good for me to find new ways to work on settling myself.
Yep.
And not letting my thoughts run away, which is what usually happens. I end up thinking about things while I'm supposed to be thinking about one thing. So
you
like that. I'm very visual, so isolating the spots on the body was very helpful for me.
Good. And you can find these meditations, these guided meditations on our website, InsightLA.org. Just
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to check those out.
Folks in the comments are saying, that felt like a warm bath for my insides. I haven't been that calm in a month.
Yeah.
Loud.
Yeah, so take advantage of the
Right.
guided
Yeah.
meditations that we have. I have them
Yeah.
on my website, trudygoodman.com. We have them on our InsightLA website, InsightLA.org, as you know, and just, try them. There's some short ones. They're mostly not that long and will make a big difference.
Hey, Trudy, let's do like a couple more questions.
Okay.
We have a little bit of time. We have a little bit of time left.
We
It's
have a
almost
little
8.
time left, and it's your turn. I just did that. So you want to take one?
Yeah. Can we have one more question or a couple more questions?
This one is from Crystal. Working from home has felt like my home has been invaded and I no longer have a safe space since management has been piling on tasks to ensure we are keeping busy and have work to do, and work hours have increased. How reinstate that safe space within our homes since we no longer have that kind of escape from the office?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's talk to Crystal.
Crystal is unmuted.
Hi, Sandra. Hi, Trudy.
Hi, Crystal.
Hey, Crystal. Man, I gotta tell you, I'm sorry to hear that. I've talked to a couple friends who have been kind of super overwhelmed and kind of like burnt out by their workload, which somehow has increased.
Yeah.
My job is not like yours. I don't know exactly what your job is, but I just want to speak a little bit about and ask you about, like, I can't imagine, and I'm so sorry, that extra workload, because for me it feels like there are certain work situations that don't seem to be taking into the account of how life has changed and the reality of the real experience this has on all of us. No one's relaxing at home, and all, hearing what you're saying, just needing the actual psychic space to do your work. There's a reason why we leave home to go do our work, and then you come back home. So is there ever a chance for, I don't know, a conversation, or what's the relationship with you and work, and, even to tell management, I don't even know if you are management, to like, there has to be room for people's real experiences.
So it's it's basically just like I'm a technical writer, and I basically well, I work for NASA, and so it's nonstop. We're not stopping, and because of the budget, and because there's deadlines, and because there's all that stuff that we cannot put things on hold, we've just been going and going and going, and there doesn't seem, and they try to put in as much as they can right now to take advantage of, you know, everybody having more time, you know, and it's creating that safe space. Like I said, whenever you come home, you basically escape from the office. You're like, okay, I can relax. I left work in the office, but now your home is your office. And so there's like that looming cloudiness, and it's just like there's never seems to be any free time in your own head, because you're like, okay, well, I have this to do tomorrow, I have this deadline to do, and it's just there's never any me time anymore. And in management, I guess they just want to try to make sure we keep busy, so, you know, and get our tasks done, but at the same time, it's there doesn't see, and I know there's lots of us that feel the same way right now, where we don't get that sense of, we don't get that escape, I guess, anymore.
Or the time, I'd say, to deal with the reality of how this is making you feel.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way that everyone is not experiencing anxiety and fear. You know what I mean? So that's what I was saying of like the actual reality of the situation. And, you know, the idea that we're supposed to be more productive at this time because we're not spending the time commuting. I don't really know. Maybe Trudy, you can speak more to the actual what power that you have within your own house and your own space to even make that space.
Well, you know, I saw one of the many funny things that were being passed around at one point was this little gif of a woman, and she's tossing her head and putting on her sunglasses and said, "I'm going to work. I'll be in the living room." And, you know, it was funnier to see it than my telling it. But the point I think I'm getting to is there has to be some part, unless you're just living in a one-room studio, in which case you'll need a curtain. There has to be one part of the house where you don't have your computer, where you don't work. Like, are you working from your bed?
So in bed, my husband and I are working from home, so, you know, so he has the home office. So my only space is the bedroom. So I have a desk in here, and like, you know, working over there, and he's on conference calls. Yeah. We can't have each other hearing each other. So I'm in here, and it's just,
that's hard. That's hard. You know what? Even if you tack a sheet up on the wall and make yourself a cubicle, there has to be a little refuge for you. I know my daughter's having the same problem because her husband, he never worked at home, and his desk is in the bedroom. And anyway, that was her space, and now it just isn't anymore. So it's hard. I don't think, I think you go to your body also as a refuge and do some body scan and do some guided meditations. You can do them even for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in between things. Yes, Sandra, sorry.
You know, Crystal, I'm a big believer in like ritual, and because I think it opens up a psychic space, meaning like, it's like, I don't know if you had siblings, but it's like, you know, when you make a pillow wall?
Yes.
it's like, this is my private space, sister. This is my pillow wall. But I actually do feel like, because you don't, I mean, that's the reality of it. But if you don't have a place to like make a curtain or whatever, honestly, if you endow a piece of string and put a piece of string around your desk, right? And say like everything that is in this string space of your desk, it doesn't come out into my bedroom. It's like, I just think that it's I mean, it's just a ritualized way of delineating space because you actually don't have an actual wall. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I do feel like just the action of that honors your need for space. That makes sense.
Yeah,
And
especially in the bedroom, like what
correct.
We come to relax and lay down and everything, and that's where my work is too.
That's where your work is, right? But not beyond the pillow wall, you know.
I like that idea of making. We used to make forts with pillows when we were little, and yeah. You know, I'm looking at the time, and I also glanced at the chat, and I don't see it anymore. But somebody said, "Hey, can we do this tomorrow?"
I really, really, really appreciate this conversation and just talking with everyone. It's great to connect with obviously clearly new faces and new people, but also hearing what people are thinking and dealing with. It's been really great. And I also really appreciate both of the sits, Trudy. I really appreciate those meditations. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate your generosity to appear and do this for us. This event is a benefit for InsightLA, and it's Sandra's total gift to us. And I'm so grateful to you, really. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And somebody has asked, Hugo has asked a couple times, what is our favorite meditation book? And my favorite one is the one I first read in the 70s, and it's called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. That book, every time I would sort of reach a little deeper into my own heart, my own being, I feel like that book was there to meet me, and it still is. So that's mine. Do you have one, Sandra?
You want to know what? I cannot believe it. It's right here.
Oh my gosh.
It's literally sitting right beside me.
What is it?
And oh my God, do you know, we have a dear friend in common, Beverly, and a note from Beverly is stuck on this. This is actually Pema Chodron.
Yeah.
When Things Fall Apart. I will say a friend gave this to me when times were difficult in my life, and I found great solace in this. I can't believe it's actually just sitting right beside me.
Well, you're an actor. You had to prop. It was perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Really, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and being together. And this is, you know, it seems so weird when I take a step back and think, oh my God, it's dark out and I'm sitting at the computer, because when we're together, it's almost like Mr. Rogers. You know, some of you are too young to have watched it. And some of you will remember watching him. I remember my daughter, he wasn't there when I was little, but my daughter would watch him, and when she was maybe 2, 3, 4, and he would come and he would talk to the children directly, and they believed they were with him, and they would answer him and talk back to him as if he could hear them. I feel like this has that magical feeling of closeness that we had with Mr. Rogers. I feel that with all of you, and I'm so grateful that we can be together even in this odd way. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Mark.
So much.
What? Sorry?
Your parents are here, Sandra.
Where?
Oh, a second. Wait a second. Where's Mom and Dad?
Can we see them? Will they
there's. Oh my God, my dad's clapping. He's clapping. Hi, Daddy.
Oh, hi, Dad.
You're great. Yeah. Appreciate your show. Yeah.
I love it. It's a show.
To meet you. I've met you in person, but now I meet you. Yeah.
Where's Amma?
Mom went inside, you know. I don't know washroom maybe, you know. She was here for a while, yeah.
Okay.
Because it's late your time, right? It's late.
No. They're in Vancouver, so they're in the same time zone.
Okay, I thought they were still Toronto. Yeah. Sorry.
No. Okay.
Okay. Hope to see you again.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, Daddy.
Bye. Great, Sandy.
The best. But I know I just want to say hi to everybody and say hi. Can everyone just can you unmute, and so just everyone can say hi and bye to each other too.
Hi. Hi. Everyone. Everyone. Thank you. Sandra. I see you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I love you so much.
Bye, Trudy.
Bye.
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 Yeah.
Bye.